I'd like to introduce you to someone now who has been a very significant character on my journey. This person that I've met on my journey at the beginning of my breakthrough has really made an impact in my life because she taught me how to love myself again. She gave me the gift of empathy, of challenge, and I honestly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her help and support and guidance at the beginning of this journey. So I'd love to introduce you to you now, a wonderful lady called Katie Phillips.
I'm going to cry. It was only 9 years ago that my predominant feelings were serious amounts of anger, deep anxiety, depression, total hopelessness, loneliness. Like, I was desolate. I used to wake up every morning, and you know that feeling, and you'll know this if you've ever lost somebody, if someone's died that's close to you, and you wake up and everything's okay for a second, and then it hits you and you remember the reality of your life. And I used to wake up every single morning like it was okay, and then boom, the anxiety would hit and my heart would start racing and I couldn't breathe because my heart was racing so fast. And that's how I would start the day. I would often be on the floor with anxiety. I would be taking the washing up the stairs and I couldn't breathe and I had no reason for it, but this was how I lived my life. And I used to walk around the world like I was having this sort of out-of-body experience. I don't know if any of you can relate to it. It was like I was watching myself from the outside, going about my day, and I was smiling. Big love to you. I'm going to start too. It's okay. And I was smiling, and I was keeping up appearances, and to the outside looking in, I totally had it all going on. I was a very successful woman. I had a very successful career in international events management and sponsorship hospitality. So I was at all the Olympic Games. I was at football World Cups, rugby World Cups, Grand Prix. I was on the circuit. I was doing it. I was traveling the world for many years. It was great. I was at the parties. I was the party girl. I always had the boyfriends. I was making decent money. You don't get paid that well in events. But I looked successful. But I was dying inside, and the only way I can really describe it is like I had this black hole inside of me. It was this void to be filled. And so, and maybe some of you can relate, I would look outside of myself for things to fill the void, to make me feel okay. My things were pretty socially acceptable. I don't have a drug or alcohol abuse story. But a bottle of wine and Netflix definitely did the trick. I was absolutely, completely addicted to drama-fueled relationships. I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship. I would look to the man in my life to complete me. And I would create trouble, or I would be in a relationship that would be so full of trouble that I could throw myself into that, and then I didn't have to face really what was going on inside. And we've all got our coping mechanisms, whether it's online shopping or eating or overworking. We've all got them. So this is kind of how I was rolling, always looking outside of myself for approval, didn't have it within. And then I had my rock bottom moment. You called it the pit. I actually call it my eat, pray, love moment, when she's on the floor in the bathroom. I had one of those. And on this day, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, middle of the week. I'd drawn the blinds in my bedroom, closed the door. Nobody knew. My son was at nursery, he was 2. And I took a few Valium, and I just hoped the world would go away. I was totally done, completely done. I was sobbing my heart out. And when I speak about it, I take myself back to that moment. I can feel it, I can see it. Me lying in that bed, sobbing my heart out, and I was so alone. No one knew, because I was so good at smiling and keeping up appearances, no one had any idea how alone and desolate I felt. And what had brought on this particular experience was a fight with the boyfriend, another unhealthy, emotionally, mentally abusive relationship. And we'd had a fight, and this time it was over. This time the relationship had ended, and I was living in his house. I didn't own a car. At this point, I wasn't working. I had no income, no savings. I was utterly dependent on this man, and I had a 2-year-old in tow. And I had a week to find somewhere else to live. And I didn't know where I was going to go. But that actually wasn't the problem. I am really good at surviving life. Most of us are. I'm intelligent, I'm resourceful, I will always figure it out, and I always did. So that actually wasn't the problem. The problem was I had reached a stage in my life where I had nothing left to give. I had no inner foundation. I had no sense of self. Because, and Helen knows this, because for years my people-pleasing behavior had me looking outside of myself for approval, for love, for worthiness, for affection, whatever it was, I didn't have that internal reserve. So when the shit hit the fan, and then if there was a bump in the road or life threw a curveball, it shattered my total sense of self. I didn't have that rock-solid foundation. And I had no idea what to do. And then it occurred to me that I'd become my mother. If you could take a snapshot of that day, of me in that bedroom, and compare it to a snapshot of the day that my mum killed herself, it was identical. And I had spent all of my life doing everything I knew to do to not be like mum, to not end up depressed, to not end up that woman. And there I was, because when my mum overdosed, she had closed the blinds in her bedroom in the middle of the day. She too had just broken up with her boyfriend, and she too had a couple of weeks to figure out where she was going to live. Like, you couldn't make it up. I realized I was this puppet to total subconscious programming. But again, for mom, like, that wasn't the problem. I remember that she had maps on the side of her bed. She was like looking for where she was going to move to, and like, she was resourceful. She totally would have figured it out. But she was done. She had no energy to deal with life anymore. And I know she didn't mean to do it, but she did. And in her death, I learned a big lesson, which is coming. You said this word so many times, and I wish I'd counted how many times you said this word, choice, in your talk. Someone else said it as well. Choice. It's the most powerful word, I think, in the English language. Choice. Write it down. Choice. We always have a choice. And I had this moment, my Eat, Pray, Love moment, where a voice, and it was my voice. It wasn't the voice of God. It wasn't something outside of me. It was this, like, my authentic self. I call it my spiritual self. My wise inner voice. And it was like, Katie, you have a choice. You can go down this path that you're on. You know exactly where it leads. You know the outcome here. Or you can choose a different way. Like, it occurred to me, I had unconsciously, I didn't even try, if I could unconsciously do life one way that ended up there, then surely there must be another way of doing life. I just hadn't been taught it, right? There's so many coaches in the room, you're going, yes! I hadn't been taught another way of doing life. I had to learn a different way. And in my depths of despair, somehow something in me knew that this was true. And then this other little voice kicked in, and it was the most loving, beautiful, wise voice, and it said, Katie, come on. This makes me want to cry. You are worth so much more than this. You're worth so much more than this. You are meant to have an abundant, amazing life. You're meant to give. You're meant to be of service. You're meant to create. You're meant to live your dreams. What are you doing in this fucking room? Am I allowed to swear? Yes. What are you doing in this room? Figure out a different way. And I didn't know the other way. I had no idea how I was even going to get out of bed and wash my face and go and get my son from nursery. But do you know what? I'm so glad I had him. He was my motivation. I had zero self-worth and self-confidence that day to do it for me. I wasn't worth it, but he was. And I wasn't going to do to him what Mum did to me, even though I love her and I know she didn't mean it. So I did. And, you know, willingness is a powerful, miraculous thing. Willingness, that decision, that choice, that no matter what, when that decision and choice that is backed by deep, powerful emotion, it's got to be emotionally backed. When it's emotionally backed, freaking miracles happen. And so I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was doing. But the universe then steps in and realigns and reorganizes around us. I love the nodding I'm getting. I'm so in the right room. Are you guys nodding? The universe reorganizes around us and it shows us the way. We don't need to know how. And I was just shown it might have been a line from a song. I get a lot of messages through songs. It might have been a meditation. It might have been a passage in a book, somebody I met. But slowly, this sort of puzzle started to come together. And the message was, Katie, you have to learn to love yourself. No one taught you how. You have to learn to love yourself. And I was like, right, okay, cool. To me then, self-love meant self-care. That was it. It was like, just take care of yourself. So I started going on beautiful long walks. I would have beautiful long hot candlelit baths. I would pamper myself. I'd spend time with high vibe friends. I took up meditation. And that was all great. And it definitely lifted my vibration. It definitely signaled to the universe that I really meant business. I definitely started to feel better. It lifted me out of my funk, but it wasn't enough. And I had to then go on a journey of learning how to heal myself, to gain mental and emotional mastery, to connect with my spiritual truth. And that's what I now call the self-love affair. And I went on to write a book about it. And I went on to become a coach and a speaker. And I've created several meditation albums and I run retreats and yada, 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 and so it goes on. So my business was founded in 2010 off the back of that experience. And I've just told you one story. I've got loads of stories. We all do. I could, if I was speaking to a room of single women that wanted to know how to find their soulmate, I could tell you my story around that. If I was speaking to a room of menopausal women, I'm in the process of writing my perimenopause story and the ups and downs and the joys of that, right? We've all got our stories and we get to write our story and we can tailor it for the audience or the program we've got to sell or, you know, whatever it is. We've all got various stories. That's what I want to say. So why do we need to share a story? You've pretty much just stolen my thunder. But I'm going to say it my way. And that's key, right? Even if our message is the same, I reckon nearly every coach in this room would stand up and say something similar to some of what I've said. I do it my way. You're going to do it your way. I have a very strong belief that what challenges us in our lives is our gift. And we are doing ourselves and the world a huge disservice if we don't use that gift to be of service. So the gift, yes, it creates amazing life-changing experiences for us. So it is all about me. Like, I have changed my life. I don't recognize that woman in that room 9 years ago. I'm actually quite unapologetic about the woman I've become and how freaking great my life is now and how I have mental and emotional mastery. I have shitty days, but mostly it's great. I've created a thriving business. I have an amazing boyfriend, like off the scale, who knew it was possible to have such a healthy relationship. I've changed my life. I'm unapologetic about it. And You see, here's the thing. Once upon a time, I wouldn't have wanted to share the story I just told you because I'd have been embarrassed. I'd have been so ashamed. My best friends, when I was going through that, it wasn't that long ago, my best, dearest girlfriend said to me, she heard my TED Talk, she went, I didn't know that you were going through that. My best friend didn't know. I was so ashamed of how I felt. I didn't even know how to put it into words. We have a responsibility to put into words our story. And we have a responsibility to share it with the world. I think the consciousness of the planet would be affected if we all did that. I don't think we have tough times just for the hell of having tough times. I think we're meant to have the tough times so that we can individually evolve and grow, and then by sharing it collectively, we get to evolve and grow and raise the consciousness. It's pretty cool. So I don't know how much time I've got left, but I'm going to just quickly share, how much, 2 minutes? Okay. The impact that sharing my stories had on my business, and see if you can relate. I wrote these down at 10 o'clock last night. Target audience. We have to know our target audience, otherwise we don't know who we're marketing to. By getting real clarity on my story and understanding who I was, because writing your story helps you to know you better, actually. I came to realize my target audience, my ideal client for the School of Self-Love and for my private coaching was me 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was me. It was that high-functioning, successful woman who had it all going on the outside, but on the inside, she's an emotional yo-yo, desiring mental and emotional mastery. And she's got serious codependent issues going on too, in the habit of putting everybody else first before herself. That was me. So that's who I now work with. It gave me that clarity. We have to have that clarity, otherwise we don't know who we're talking to in our marketing. Need that for our business. It's the know, like, trust factor. So as a coach, I'm never going to work with someone that doesn't feel like she knows me or likes me or trusts me. We have such an intimate, special, precious relationship. She has to know that she can totally trust me, that I've been where she is, which brings me on to I'm the expert. So through sharing my story, usually when I speak, and I have longer, I would go on to describe, like, what is the self-love affair? How can you change your life? How do you achieve this massive transformation? Through sharing the how that I did it, I become the expert. So she trusts me even more. I inspire you to what's possible by sharing my story. And when we feel inspired, we feel inspired. We don't think inspiration, we feel inspiration. So when my potential clients or customers are wondering if they might like to work with me, they're feeling it. They're thinking about the cost, right? But they're feeling like, yeah, you know what? She gets me. She's been there. You can speak at events at short notice, or like me, you can be super unprepared at the last minute. And you got your story. You know your story, or you have several stories. You pick one, and then you tailor it. Boom, done. And we need to be able to speak at events, I believe, because it's a great chance for networking. It's a great chance to meet potential new customers. Who knows, right? You can write a book. Perfect. You can't write a book without a story, and a book actually just solidifies your expertise. And it reminds you of your reason why. Everyone in this room is an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneurial journey can be like this, right? We all know it. And when you're down here and you're wondering what the freak am I doing? You remember, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I remember who I am. I remember why I do this. There's not a day that goes by that I don't connect to why I'm here to serve the women, and some men actually, that I work with. We need to know our why. So whatever's holding you back, and I'm wrapping up, whatever's holding you back from writing your story, can you please let it go? If you're embarrassed, if you're ashamed of it, if you're wondering what other people will think, or if you think that boasting about your amazing life is going to make somebody in the room feel small, get over it. I really invite you to go home, write your stories, and remember that your business is a vehicle to helping other people have a bigger, better in life. That's the point of your business. It is a vehicle to be of service. So use your personal transformations, your personal stories to help other people. I love you. Thank you. you.